Mike's unmuted.
Right. 4:30. We call the meeting to order. Acknowledgement that the District of Tofino operates within the territory of the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation. Notice to attendees that the meeting is being video recorded and will be published on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel. And notice to virtual attendees to sign up for public comment and question period using the Q&A function in Zoom. To register, participants are required to enter their full name, residential address, and the agenda item they wish to speak to. Through unanimous consent, I move that pursuant to section 15 of the District of Tofino Meeting Procedure Bylaw number 1229, 2016, as amended to September 9th, 2025, Committee of the whole meeting be held electronically via Zoom and live broadcasted on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel. And that the facility provided for the public to watch and hear the meeting be located at the Tla-o-qui-aht Sound Community Theater, 380 Campbell Street in Tofino BC. And through unanimous consent, I move that the September 9th, 2025 Committee of the whole agenda be adopted. And through unanimous consent, I move that the minutes of the Committee of the whole meeting held July 9th, 2025 be adopted. Motion is carried. And up next is public comment on agenda items. I see we have a few people signed up in the gallery. Do we have anyone signed up on Zoom?
Thank you, Chair. We don't currently have anyone signed up, but we do have members of the public in attendance, so I will do a call. So for those in the gallery who wish to speak, if you haven't signed up already, please raise your hand. If there's anyone attending online via Zoom that would like to make a comment, you can do so now using the Q&A function. Before you make a comment, you'll need to state your name, your address, and the agenda item you're speaking to. I'll now do a call. Calling once, calling twice, calling 3 times. No comments on Zoom.
All right. So for public comment on agenda items, first up, I have Lara Palmer.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Lara Palmer, 320 Tonquin Park Road, and I'm speaking to agenda item 8.1. I've called Tofino home for 16 years now, and I feel so grateful to live in a place where the rainforest and the ocean meet at our doorstep. When we purchased 320 Tonquin Park Road in 2019, we immediately saw how unique the property is. A large forested parcel right beside the Tonquin Trail and beach, yet minutes from downtown. From the beginning, we understood our responsibility was to balance much needed housing with the protection of the forest that makes Tofino and Tonquin so special. Our plan has always been to donate a large portion of the land adjacent to Tonquin Beach through the Federal Ecological Gifts Program. The program provides federal oversight and a tax incentive, which is important to make the project viable, especially with all the increased costs that have happened over the last few years. Our driveway for the development is complete with 300 meters of fully serviced utilities. That's about 3 football fields long. The change we're requesting today doesn't alter our intent to protect the land. In fact, it allows us to do it sooner. The adjustment is to simply align with federal program requirements so that we can move forward in a financially sustainable way. And we're happy to donate the protected land to the District of Tofino after subdivision. Jill Kreba will explain the program details more in her presentation. This rezoning process has already taken 3 years. We respectfully ask council to confirm that this approach fulfills the original intent and to allow it to move to third reading on September 16th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Brian Boone.
Brian Gould, 1241 Howard Road. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My comments are about agenda item 8.2, item 2, adjusting population and growth projections to match our water supply and housing needs. So my name is Brian Gould. I've been a professional engineer in BC for 30 years. My wife Lana and I have been part-time residents here since 2017 in Tofino. We recently purchased 1241 Howard Road, one of the last undeveloped lots in the subdivision, where we've begun design and engineering for a retirement home with a long-term rental suite. I'm familiar with the limits to growth policy and the WAC permit system, which has already shut down expansion of hotels and resorts. Until recently, it was understood that these permits for single-family homes would remain available for at least another year or two. But now with 24 permits issued to the Woodsmere subdivision and a surge of new applicants, it appears they may be gone much sooner, if not already. So this uncertainty puts our long-term plans at risk. In the report to council on this agenda item, the housing data from the last 5 years includes many homes with caretaker cottages. From what I've seen, the majority of these cottages and sometimes even the main houses are being used as short-term rentals. While legal in some zones, obviously, this skews the data on true long-term rental housing, long-term housing that's being used to shape the amendments to the OCP. So my request is as follows, please ensure the amendments to the OCP give priority to long-term residents. Water allocation shouldn't favor short-term rentals or commercial plans, whether they're upfront about it or not, over people who plan to make Tofino their permanent home. Thank you.
Moving on to correspondence, we have 7.1 correspondence from Alexander Hunter, constituency assistant at the office of Lord Johns, MP for Courtney Alberni, regarding the salmon pledge. And I believe Mayor Law may have some comments to make on this.
Just a quick comment that Alexander contacted me and requested this council this pledge, and I did reach out with staff back on Skype request and maybe or off with council, giving council a back.
Sure, thank you, and through the chair. Several terms ago, council made a decision to move away from pledges or signing on to requests such as these, and doing a review of purchasing or whatever it may be, do that under the purview of a policy or a bylaw. And the reason for that is those policies and bylaws, they give that good direction to staff and also a transparent way of just sort of demonstrating how we're taking decisions in this regard. So if we were to speak about this pledge specifically, some of it does touch on the tariffs, recent tariff discussions, and sort of the global how to approach the global. As council is aware, we have established a tariff task force, which is looking at the procurement policy as it's currently stated, and we'll bring forward recommendations to council through that role. So I think at this time, it's probably best that we have that discussion through the tariff task force recommendation out. Now that we've spent some time purchasing in the current environment, we've seen some impacts to pricing, and I think that information should come back to council for consideration through the discussions. So I would advise council at this time consider making those decisions.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Maybe I can make just a comment. the chair, just as a comment, I do understand the intent and the spirit, and you know that I share the spirit of the, you know, standing up for Canada and Cities terrorists, and also reaching out to not only other coastal communities in British Columbia, but also down in Washington and Oregon. So I do empathize with the spirit of the process. But I think guess I can't really tackle it under the tariff task force and get some hard policy that will help guide staff, council, and the.
Thank you. There are no further comments. We will move on to item 8.1. Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1351, 320 Tonquin Park Road. Report from Ms. Frida.
Good evening, Mayor. I have a presentation for you. I'll turn you to presenter. Just 1 sec. As I mentioned, I'm presenting on the zoning amendment bylaw 1351 this evening. And it is for 320 Tonquin Park Road. .36 hectares or 8.3 acres. It is within the future homes land use designation as well as the containment area. It's currently zoned A2, which is restricted to a minimum lot area of 4.9 acres, hence the requirement for zoning amendment to further subdivide. This. Are you looking at any changes? Back up just 1 minute. Okay. For clarity, we're looking at 2 options this evening. Option 1 is that council accepts the new proposal. Option 2 is that council does not accept the new proposal. If council does not accept the amended proposal, the applicants then have 2 paths forward. We can either come to 3rd reading with a recommendation from staff to deny based on the substantial change to the application, or B, we defer 3rd reading until a land donation agreement has been agreed upon mutually. So this may look like reverting back to the original application. So just a summary of the proposal. We are maintaining the bulk of it in that we're still seeking the applicants are still seeking to rezone to facilitate the 5-lot subdivision. The lots will permit up to 3 dwellings per lot, as well as the removal of short-term rental and amenity permissions. What has changed is that we're looking at a reduction in the trees that are going to be contributed to the significant tree bylaw, and I'll dig into that a little bit further. We are shifting from a 2.7 acre land donation to a land covenant or conservation covenant, and that will encompass about 2.3 acres for the covenant itself.
and with a 0.4 parcel that would be reserved for parkland subdivision. Early days, they believe is that permission to proceed, the CAC was waived due to this significant land donation that was being considered. So in light of that, the applicants have added the $3,000 community amenity contribution as per our guidelines. So just a bit of a deeper dive into the significant tree change. So originally, we were looking at 45 trees to be contributed to the significant tree bylaw. This included 15 trees on the lot that was adjacent, which is 340 Tonquin. There were 3 trees within the District of Tofino right of way, and then 27 on the subject lot itself. The proposal being presented today is excluding the trees beyond the property line. The bulk of the trees that were on 340 were initially included based on an agreement between the property owners, and it was during the land purchase that the protection of these trees was to be included with this ultimate proposal. The applicants do have an enforceable agreement in place, and they will be pursuing that with the neighbors at a future point, and that could be prior to the adoption of the significant tree bylaw, or it could be at a future date, depending on those applicants. The trees within the Cedar Street right of way were removed because staff recommend that we do a little bit more investigating as to the implications of including those trees. Right now, as it stands, the Cedar Street road dedication is not planned for any expansion of the roadway. But through the referral, it was discussed that potentially that area could be utilized for a water main looping to upgrade the infrastructure in the neighborhood. So we just want to caution putting ourselves in a situation where we are not able to do what we need to do to support the community. But that can be further discussed. Council has discretion to include that in the significant tree bylaw at a later date as well. So for the intents of this application, we're just focusing on the 27 trees within the property lines. The bulk of the change rests with the parkland consideration. So as mentioned, initially there was a land donation promise of about 2.7 acres. So as Lara mentioned, the applicants are still pursuing the avenue of donation through this EGP program, the Ecological Gifts Program, which is a federally run program that supports conservation, but also incentivizes it. And so from a policy, from a planning perspective, basically we needed to assess whether or not this application still aligned from a perspective of land preservation, wilderness preservation, natural environment interests within the OCP. So to mitigate for that loss of guarantee, because without a land develop or without a development agreement in place, there are no guarantees that any transfer would happen. So to mitigate for those interests of natural environment preservation, the applicants are proposing to apply a conservation covenant that restricts vegetation removal and restricts development within that area. The rationale for excluding that portion at the very bottom there, circled in red, is that at the time of subdivision, they will have a requirement to donate a 5% parkland dedication. So this just ensures the area is earmarked for that future development should zoning be approved. So this area would be included in that development agreement alongside some of the other conditions that will be further explored at third reading. The shape and location as well are at the discretion of council. So this particular area was chosen based on its adjacency to Tonquin Park. So in the interest of expanding the parkland, we know that at subdivision we can get that 5%, and at least there would be a buffer created between the developable areas of the property and the park itself through this covenant. So this is a site plan that was submitted as part of a development permit in an earlier subdivision of the land. And so this benefited us in a way that gave us a bit of an insight, more thorough insight as to the nature of the property and the lower half of the lot itself. Whereas our district maps only show a certain portion of stream that's been ground truth and the riparian area that's applied to that lot. So this actually expands that watercourse. So from a perspective of whether or not this land would be suitable for public use park versus wilderness preservation, from a high level assessment, it can be determined that it may not be, it would be more well suited to wilderness preservation than public use park. Given the watercourse, the steep topography, you can see the contours as well as the presence of old forest. So something to consider if we're looking at from a perspective of preservation and weighing the interests of land donation versus covenant. So that said, there are risks. Focusing in on that land ownership slash covenant, conservation covenant in play. So risks being that there are no guarantees of the land transfer occurring. So today the question is council comfortable with moving forward with the application with the mitigative conservation measures in place, i.e. the conservation covenant? If the applicants do not succeed in moving forward with that EGP program, we would still be gaining conservative measures with that covenant. The lands maintained privately will not permit public access. So this will not serve as, it'll serve as a buffer between the developable areas in the park, but won't support recreational opportunities. So lands donated via the EGP may also impose strict conservation terms. So if the EGP program, because it is the intent of it is to ensure conservation perpetuity, there may be the requirement to apply a stricter covenant in place of the one that that we're considering today, that guarantees that land is protected, not only from a district ownership perspective, but just ensuring for long-term land use protections, new council, new ownership of the property, etc. Those conditions aren't as influential. So privately owned lands offer weaker long-term stewardship and enforcement. So as I said, owning the land will benefit the district from a stewardship and enforcement perspective. From a policy perspective, there is a balance of interest. So as this application in its revised form does offer protection for those sensitive areas. So a covenant in place does protect the 2.3 acres if the transfer does not succeed, as I mentioned. A conservation covenant does align with our climate objectives and supports our 30 by 30 initiative. We do have the benefit of that additional CAC cash contribution that is in accordance with our guidelines. We are gaining 27 trees to our significant tree bylaw, as well as the covenant does align with our OCP policy for protection of natural environment and parkland acquisition. That brings us back to maybe. The slide is bringing us back to our options again. So weighing, council has an opportunity to weigh in on whether or not you believe the new proposal is sufficient and reasonable, or if it's not. And if it's not, then we again are faced with those two paths of moving to third reading with a recommendation to deny or renegotiating the terms of the original proposal. I look forward to answering any questions you might have. I said that was going to be brief.
All right, thank you. I'll look to the rest of council for a round of questions or comments. You could see Councillor Steer on somebody in case he's got his hand up. Okay, we'll start with Mayor Law.
Thanks, Mr. President. Just a question on, Ms. Palmer noted that this application has been in process for years. Why or how did it come to the point now where this federal ecological gifts program restriction came about? Is this a new thing, or is this overlooked, or how did this happen? Just
Can't really speak to that because I inherited this file from previous planners, but what I do know is that through sort of the exercise of digging into this program, you know, through this process as we were exploring sort of discussing the development agreement and trying to get these things in place prior to adoption or even prior to third reading, these things came to light. So I'm not sure why this wasn't discussed earlier. I believe that it came up that the federal program was going to be an option, but I'm not sure if that was fully understood what the implications of that were going to be.
So maybe just a follow-up question, if I may, through the chair. So just to be clear, the federal ecological program, gift program, wasn't explicitly inherent in the original application. Is this something that's come out, or is this?
Thank you for the question through the chair. Through what I can decipher through the records, it is understood that there was mention of the federal program, but I'm not sure if it was explicitly the ecological gifts program.
Next up, Councillor Steer.
Thank you, and through the chair. A question for clarity, but first I want to say I'm in support of moving forward with the proposed amendment to third reading. In terms of
This is a
audio,
fantastic internet.
I-
Sorry, Tom, we can't hear what you're saying. I don't know if you have unmuted yourself or if it's the connection.
can you hear me? It must be the connection. The audio is horrible. Can you hear me?
Mayor Law recommends you try turning your camera on and off, or just to turn it off while you're speaking.
Are you able to hear me now? No, not able to hear me now.
All right, well, we can read your captions, Tom, but we cannot hear you. I'll look to Nyla or Legislative Services. Would he be able to submit his question in writing? That glad?
Check with the corporate officer. I'm pretty sure that if we can read Councillor Steer's question on the screen, then is it okay if we? Yeah, we can. And Councillor Steer, if you can hear me, if you do want to use the Q&A function to submit any particular comments, I can read them aloud as well.
All right, if you're comfortable with that, Ms. Krupa.
Thank you again.
Okay. All right.
It won't allow me.
We'll go ahead and wait for Councillor Steer's question to come through Q&A. Oh, it won't allow me.
Oh.
Maybe we'll move on to any other comments and see if the Q&A function will work for Councillor Steer. And then we'll move back before we do a round of comments. That's all right? Okay. Any other questions? No? All right. You've got a comment? Okay, let's go to a round of comments and then check back in with Councillor Steer. Comment?
Yeah, my comment was I feel like this land is better suited as what was the term? Conservation area instead of a parkland, so I feel comfortable supporting conservation.
I'll make a comment, Chair, if I may. I was initially very excited to see this large of a parkland contribution. That was a defining factor of why I was in favor of this proposal. However, I understand that the only difference here is going to be public access to the land. And I also understand that sometimes public access results in more environmental loss than lack of public access. And I feel that the spirit of what a lot of people want to see in growing Tonquin Park is to see those pristine areas maintained. So I would be hesitantly comfortable with this. Comment from Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, I sort of asked myself if this proposal had come forward as suggested now at the beginning. They have accepted it, they have, I think, as soon as it exists. So. It's acceptable.
All right. And comment from Lara.
Yeah, one of the defining factors of parkland is public ownership. Not necessarily public access, big important deal. And that's for me, in this case, I would say a risk that I would want to see mitigated. I would say that if it just remains the covenant as is, I wouldn't go for it. I don't support it because it doesn't offer a guarantee, as you've noted, as staff have noted. And the really only strong guarantee is public ownership. And in my experience with covenants, they sound good, but they're very difficult to enforce, often and sometimes ignored. Certainly in my own neighborhood, there's many covenants that are completely ignored, very hard to enforce. And so that's my concern, although I think ecological reserve is fine. It's the security of public ownership, and that also allows public access should it be required, but I don't think parks necessarily demand public access. So I wouldn't have supported this in initially if it initially came forward with just a covenant, and so I'm going to request that if it's I would like to see it deferred until a mutually agreeable situation can be arranged. But that's maybe minority. That's my comment.
All right, any comments over here?
Yeah, I mean, I much prefer the original proposal. Feel comfortable with the rest that you've outlined here. So I don't like changing things mid-course. I'm not fully convinced about the tree thing. So I'd be supporting deferring or going back to square one.
I think similar to Councillor Anderson, if this was presented this way in the beginning, I would have been okay with it. I think now understanding the parkland and the importance of having the public ownership of it, I would be more in favor of deferring until we could see what the other options are. That's what I'm not quite sure, but hearing the risks kind of outlaid makes me a bit more hesitant to changing at this point. Although I greatly empathize and understand where the owners of land are coming from. Because
Thank you, and I think that's part of the consideration here is that after subdivision, we'd be moving on to multiple owners of parcels, and so other viewpoints and more voices there. Did we get anywhere with Councillor Spears' camera? So, okay.
Can you hear me at this time? Can you hear me?
We can, Councillor Spears. What's your question followed by a comment?
Okay, I apologize. This is awkward. I'm support. I'll start out by saying I do support the proposal as amended. My question, and I think it relates to Mayor Law's concerns around covenants. So my question to staff relates to what is the strength of covenants in general, and if the private landowner, a new private landowner, is there a mechanism to remove covenants? And are those typically utilized at this level?
Thank you for the question through the chair. The strength of the covenant would be the discretion of staff, so we can make the terms however strong we would like them to be. The draft that I've reviewed includes vegetation removal prohibition, as well as limits or prohibits the ability to construct any structures or buildings, trails. And so it is quite a strong covenant from the perspective of the EGP program. They would like to see stronger provisions. So at that time, we could explore adding additional elements to the covenant, but it would be, it would go through legal review and ensuring that the district's interests are protected.
Thank you. And may I have a follow-up, Chair?
Yep.
Thank you, through the chair. And so if, in terms of the strength of this covenant, if there was a breach of the covenant, what are the implications? What would be the ramifications to the property owner? Because this will remain as a piece of private property, is my understanding.
Thank you for the follow-up, through the chair. So one of the elements that we often add to covenants is rent charge to ensure that the terms of the covenant are guaranteed. So that's one way, is to penalize financially. The district does have an opportunity to enforce or go through legal mechanism to ensure that the covenant is enforced, but it would be at our discretion as well. So there are options available to us depending on the comfort level of council, how many provisions we put in for enforcement.
Thank you. Thank you. And if I may just might comment, I am in support of the proposal as proposed and the amendments to that for third reading. I think one of the things I share some of the concerns of Mayor Law in terms of those parkland dedications and the importance of having those as public. But I think some of the things within the OCP and some of the strategic priorities of council in terms of, and I'm using the 3x30, but the true intent of that was the commitment to biodiversity, climate resilience, and long-term ecological stewardship. So from that perspective, I'm comfortable, and that's why I've been inquiring on the strength of this covenant and through that ecological gifts program to ensure that those pieces of that puzzle, that integrity for biological diversity, is preserved. And if that is the case, and if we can put those provisions within that covenant, I would be comfortable moving at this place at this time with the third reading as the proposal, the amended third reading.
All right, and if you're done there, Tom? Yep, I've got another comment from Mayor Law.
Yeah, maybe just a question for staff is there's the potential that there isn't a donation. And we've already seen within the context of the original agreement, there was already some changes, some promises, now trees removed. So there's already the potential that things will change in the future. What happens if the applicant puts the covenant on, we agree to a covenant, and later on decides not to donate the land to the ecological foundation? That doesn't go through, or changes, or there's a change of mind. What does the district have to go back to? Do we have to go then to? We don't have it, like anything.
Thank you for the question, through the chair. So that's ultimately what we're doing today, is essentially weighing that option, because it would be irresponsible to move the application forward on a promise without that guarantee. The intent of the covenant is to sort of ensure that those natural environments elements are taken care of. So there really isn't there's no guarantee. So there really is an option if the applicants do not succeed in moving through that UGP program. So is the covenant enough of a mechanism to satisfy the interests of that association? If the applicants say the covenant was applied and tree removal or the covenant conditions were contravened, we would then revert to some of those enforcement aspects that Councillor Sue was asking about. So applying rent charges or applying sort of other legal mechanisms to ensure that they're adhering to those covenant terms. That's really ultimately all we have is just the agreements that will be in play. We can't assume that there are any guarantees based on this.
All right. Just a question then for a bit of a summary to put together everything we're discussing here. So this may move through third reading if it was decided to. But then the applicants would not know if they had succeeded in getting the EGP before it gets to third reading, or would it not get to third reading before that point? Is that what we're talking about right now?
Sorry, you're gonna have to get you to repeat the, I don't know if I
Yeah,
understand.
so, is there a chance that we will get to and beyond third reading of this without knowing if they were successful in applying for the EGP?
Thank you for the question. Yes, so there is an option that we would get through third reading and even adoption without finalization of the EGP program. So the real sort of issue at hand is that through the program, any condition of approval, so any promise or any guarantee that has been locked into a legally binding arrangement would invalidate the gift. So through the eyes of the EGP, we can't apply any sort of condition of approval to complete that program. So that's sort of the rationale for coming back with this mitigative measure of applying the covenant to ensure that that natural preservation piece was intact, should they not be successful in completing the EGP program.
All right,
It has to sort of operate in a separate stream.
okay. On it, Marilyn?
Just another question, noting that there's, you know, a few councillors who are a little uncomfortable with this, I think, but it sounds like the majority are comfortable with it with some reservation. Is there a way to direct staff or direct staff to build into the covenant a stronger enforcement mechanism so that it's not left up to a future council, a future staff complement to then go to court and then try to find out, you know, what to do at that time? Is there a way to just front load that, to build it right into the covenant?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question through the chair. That's where we would need to implement those enforcement pieces. And so just going back to the significant trees would be protected under our significant tree bylaw, but we don't necessarily have strong mechanisms in place outside of the development permit guidelines to ensure land preservation. So this would be that mechanism. We would have to ensure that the enforcement pieces are within that covenant because they don't exist elsewhere outside of the realm of significant tree bylaw yet.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? So I'm hearing a slight majority and that this moves to third reading. I'm also hearing a few voices that it be deferred. I am confident moving from the chair that it would go to third reading and we can vote on it. Look around the table to see if everyone's okay with that. Okay, now we can vote. So I move from the chair that the staff report titled Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1351-320 Tonquin Park Road dated September 9th, 2025 be received for information and discussion, and that the application proceeds to third reading as amended. Have a second. Seconded by Councillor Anderson. Any further comment?
I do have a further comment. We just discussed with staff the strengthening of the covenant within that. Now, maybe this is we're moving to send it to third reading as amended. Just want to clarify, is council aware that like it is the covenant? Maybe I have to talk to staff again, but we're in the middle of the motion. Is the covenant itself right now able to be reworked by the time it gets back to third reading, or is this it? That's the question I have.
So there is a draft in place. So this would be a part of the consideration of third reading. So at third, you'll have an opportunity to review the draft covenant. And at that point, we can add strength and language, change, amend, however you see fit. So there would be an opportunity to dig into that.
Thank you.
Are you comfortable with that? Okay, thank you. Any further comments in the motion? Nope. Okay, all in favor? 3 in favor, 4 against, the motion is failed. Oh, sorry, all opposed? 4, thank you. So that motion fails.
If I may. Yeah. We're fair on Councillor Steers vote. There is a delay.
Oh, shoot.
We might have done it.
Oh, Tom. Sorry, Councillor Steer. If you can hear this without a lag, we're going to recall the vote because we were not sure where your hand was, unless it's permissible for you to comment and clarify the vote. I don't know, Ms. Tatiana?
Can you hear?
We're
Can
just,
you hear
we're just waiting for comment from the CEO.
You would have to redo it.
All right, so we are going to recall the vote and we will give it a very healthy pause in both parts to see where your hand lands. Sorry? But first, well, there we go. Your hand is lowered. Okay.
Can you hear me at this point, just so that my audio?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'll give verbal as well as raise my hand when the vote comes.
Okay, thank you very much. So I move from the chair that the staff report titled Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1351-320 Tonquin Park Road dated September 9th, 2025 be received for information and discussion, and that the application proceeds to third reading as amended. Do I have a seconder? Second by Councillor Sloman. Any further comments in the motion? All in favor?
I'm in favor.
So we have 4 in favor, all opposed? 3 opposed, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Does anyone need a break before we move on with the agenda? All right, so if we take a 5-minute recess.
But that can affect the
Oh, just.
And that was like kind of.
Oh, hey, I'm on. It's actually kind of hard for me. Like my personal laptop. Because I did remotely. It's great. There's hardly anything that's normal.
Yeah, but I don't think it's fully the internet because I think we're in trouble with PowerPoint.
Yeah,
Oh.
like I think it might be very fast as well. I drank all the water.
I just met.
Starting.
That used me. Yeah. That's only, I get it.
Surprised.
In fact, when they had the number that I had.
I wasn't surprised.
Technically. Yeah.
Technically, the vote. Oh,
That's how I wrote
oh,
I know.
yes, parliamentarian, probably.
I don't like this.
I don't.
Probably shouldn't have asked it for.
Thank you very much. So we're back, no matter what happened. Moving on to item 8.2. Housing Needs Assessment, OCP Amendment, Report from Community Services.
Good evening, committee of the whole. Today I'll be presenting on an OCP amendment. Apparently is a year of OCP amendments for the District of Tofino. We haven't done a lot over 18 years, but now we're going. Today specifically, I'm going to be talking about housing targets, which is a legislative requirement from the province, and some growth projections related to limits to growth and the water master plan. In terms of this overall process, if we decide to move forward tonight, there'll be 4 meetings total, including this meeting. There'll be a little bit of consultation following first reading, and then hopefully wrap this up by early winter. The province released some legal legislation in the last couple of years. One of the requirements of that legislation was to complete an interim housing needs report by January 21st, 2025. We did that earlier this year. And then we need to update our OCPs that reflects the information from that report. It needs to show how many housing units we have now, how many we'll have in 5, what will have in 20, or at least our projected numbers. We'll also need a couple of statements about public transit and some other statements about how we're going to deal with our housing needs. The information that we're going to use comes from the interim housing needs report that we received in January that will be slightly updated to just reflect where we are about 9 months later. In terms of the growth projection update, it's to do with limits to growth. Our limits to growth policy followed our water master plan, which followed our 2021 OCP, which talked a lot about our issues with water. The water master plan defined that. The limits to growth gave us a little bit of direction about how to deal with that in the short term. And now what we'd like to do is take the limits to growth, convert that to a population number, and put it back into the OCP. So update the OCP essentially based on the water master plan data and information from council about what type of development we want to see in terms of residential or commercial or industrial. It's basically we're going to be back engineering the cubic meters to our population number and then assigning that as a growth curve. Community engagement, largely dictated by legislation. We plan to have one-on-one consultation meetings with the Tonquin First Nation, other municipalities and stakeholders, followed by a public information session for the community to discuss this, and then our public hearing. So following tonight, we'll be looking to move forward with first reading in probably the coming 4 weeks, maybe 3-4 weeks, maybe the October meeting, and then start our consultation program, and then go from there into second, third for adoption. And that is for a short presentation.
All right, thank you very much. I will around the table for questions for Mr. Rogers. Question from Councillor Solomon, followed by Councillor McMaster.
Through the chair, we've heard from a member of the public today about making sure housing is used for long-term use, long-term residential uses versus short-term rental. It's my understanding that that would be addressed in the zoning bylaw review, not this amendment.
It's a bit of an open question for me right now. So primarily this is about population and a growth, like flattening out the growth curve, which is based on residential development. Our limits to growth policy does talk about, supporting residential housing above commercial accommodation. Our OCP already says that it's commercial accommodation our least favorite thing to do, and residential housing is our most favorite thing to do. So without getting into the actual details of the OCP, it might or might not get in there. I started to work through it slowly. There's a lot of like the OCP is a large document, and it's quite interconnected. So there may be some conversation about how we maybe further define what uses we want, but I can't say for certain tonight what that will look like. Definitely we'll have a flattening growth curve. Everything else probably would have to wait to first reading for a different discussion.
All right, Councillor McMaster.
Yeah, on the housing needs with the numbers, I mean, I think I know the answer, I just want to make sure. Any sort of residential developments like the First Nation ones around Tinwis are not included in our numbers.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
That's all.
Right, Mayor Law?
Just a question about numbers, I know, like numbers, but there's, the total demand from the 2021 base year, I was just looking at these numbers, was 248. No, I'm just trying to figure out the 5-year, 20-year split. Is it 5 years from now? Is it 5 years from?
I believe it's 5 years from 2021.
5 years from 2021, so that's 2026 is the.
Is what would be the first one, and then there's a 5-year.
So 2021.
It's the kind of the base number, from what I understand.
6, okay. And this is really just to satisfy the Ministry of Housing guidelines, right?
Essentially, yes, it's the interim housing needs report was a requirement, and we got to a point where we're straight like, this is what it is. And that needs to be put into the OC.
I got you. I just say that because I'm looking at the numbers and trying to balance the equation with what we know we're developing, or what we assume that will be developed, like that's approved and rezoned, and it seems like that we're exceeding these numbers, or getting close to exceeding them quite a way. So I'm just wondering, does that matter?
Through the chair, from what I understand, it doesn't. These are meant to be, the province is quite clear that the projections, the aspirational for us especially, there are other municipalities that have to make these, but we don't at this point. So I don't think it matters. Okay. You do what we're doing.
I have a question, follow up on Mayor Law's. So if we're meeting or exceeding targets, does that then give us grace in future year blocks where we may not meet those targets? Like, does it accumulate forwards?
Again, it's a projection, so I don't know that it matters one way or the other. Again, it's aspirational. They want us to get to a certain housing level. Like our issue is unless we find a way to deal with water somehow, we're gonna run up against a limit that we're never gonna meet those numbers because we don't have enough water to do it. So yeah, I think it's more aspirational rather than good job. In 20 years, they'll probably ask, maybe perhaps a provincial government will ask why you didn't make your targets. But
Okay, thank you. Councillor Steer has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, question for Aaron. Aaron, just so that I understand, in terms of the projected numbers, that is, if my understanding is correct, that is the province wants to see that we've allowed for zoning for those projections, not necessarily that we have to build those, but we have the capacity within our zoning to allow for that amount of projected housing. Is that correct, or am I misled on that?
no, that's correct. It needs to be set out in the OCP, and then you do have to have the land available, which we do for those units. I think the big question for us and for many municipalities is servicing, whether we can support this amount of housing, the servicing constraints we all face.
Great, thank you.
All right, looking for rounds of comments. Oh,
comment on the question. But when this was the interim housing needs assessment was presented to us in great detail, and it was just these are just numbers that the province came up with through a calculator based on the census. I don't necessarily feel that it accurately reflects our community. That said, knowing that it's only that we need the zoning capacity, I understand that this is just a prescribed thing that we're kind of going to have to go through. But I would be interested to see if we're going through the process of the OCP amendment, if there are ways that we can somehow tailor it so we do feel that it fits our community as opposed to just being a calculation based off of an old census. That's just where I'm sitting with it. So I understand we're going through the process.
I think it's a great comment. I think that, does give me a little bit of direction, like when you come back to council, maybe spend a little bit more time and get a little more detail about where, what type of housing that might look like, so that we can at least make sure that we all are, comfortable with the fact that we do this. Thanks.
Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, my question was sort of partly answered there. How did these units translate into what type of units, and how does that relate to population growth?
Through the chair, Councilor Anderson, for me, it's as simple as thinking about Woodsmere at full build out. Like what we saw was phase one of probably 600 or 700 unit development if we had water for it in the fullness of time. Like there's that much space up there and the densities we're talking about. So if we had all the water in the world, I think we would definitely achieve it, possibly with just that one property, let alone, all the infill that we're planning on doing, some small other exurban suburban growth that's happening. So I think I would like to put it on a map now that we're discussing it. It's definitely possible.
One more comment, maybe just following on Mr. Gould's, Mr. Councillor, Mr. Gould's comment that, housing needs assessment. We are talking about housing. That is the critical component here, and it is a factor that some of the housing is not being used as housing. It's commercial accommodations, short-term rentals. And there's a great leeway in there. Some can convert to short-term rentals and that removes housing, and some can potentially go back to long-term housing. So I think that's something that would be good to discuss somehow, even in this, just to recognize the reality that the number of dwelling units does not equal long-term housing all the time. That's just it's a strong reality in our town. So maybe that comes into what type of housing units will actually meet these targets in reality on the ground.
Definitely, yeah. The OCP is very strong about its priority for housing, like quite strong, and ranks commercial accommodation at the lowest level. And so I think this will probably follow in that vein. And so that as we move forward, we're not adding more commercial accommodation at the expense of more housing.
All right, any further comments? Would anyone like to move the motion?
I move that staff be authorized to prepare an amendment to the official community plan to one, include required housing units target from 2025 interim housing assessment, two, and population and projections to align with raw water supply limitations and potential housing.
Second by Councillor McMaster, and just a comment in the motion, we vote. Councillor Steer will ask you to confirm verbally, and we'll give a good pause to make sure we're reading your hands correctly. All right, all in favor?
In favor.
That one was easier. All in favor. Motion passes. Next up, we have asset management policy and strategy, verbal report from infrastructure and public works division.
Good afternoon, members of committee as a whole. Today I'll be providing a brief verbal report on an upcoming asset management policy amendment and introduce the concept of drafting an asset management strategy to council. I'll be providing a background to the presentation, share an asset management program line of sight, speak to the proposed asset management policy amendments, introduce an asset management strategy concept, and go over public consultation members and steps. So the District of Tofino currently has an asset management policy. It was adopted by council in 2014 and currently requires an amendment. Since adoption of the 2014 asset management policy, the district has implemented and made significant investment contributions to its capital and infrastructure levy, implemented a fleet asset management plan, compiled accurate data for its infrastructure assets, and implemented an operational maintenance management program, shifting infrastructure maintenance culture to an informed preventative maintenance model. In parallel and following policy development, staff will be able to now draft and bring forth a formal asset management strategy to council later in 2025. Line of sight. So I wanted to share this graphic, which shows a high-level line of sight to assist with connecting components within the asset management program together. The asset management program is designed to incorporate dynamic strategic planning by council into the process to ensure that pragmatic connections in the asset management program exist and are adept to change. The deliverables within the line of sight do not need to be implemented in any specific order. They're all living frameworks with each component referencing, informing, and complementing the adjacent framework functions. Staff are proposing to amend the existing asset management policy to include updated historical tangible capital asset values. Now is an opportune time to do such, since the completion and detailed inventory of the district's wastewater treatment plant project and the wide range of other capital investment, infrastructure investment projects that have been completed over the past couple of years. Over the last several years, the asset management program and Asset Management British Columbia has made significant developments complementing the timing of amending the existing AM policy to ensure alignment and correlation to both the program and Asset Management BC. The policy will be amended in the district's newer policy template and inform program framework with scope and responsibilities and roles and responsibilities to optimize the asset management line of sight as previously shown. The asset management strategy is a document that will assist the District of Tofino in continually improving the way it delivers its municipal services to the community. The strategy will enable the asset management policy objectives to be achieved, outline the community's priority to service delivery, measure how the asset portfolio meets the needs of the community into the future, and ensure that asset management principles are integrated into the district's long-term strategic planning for the community. Some contents of an asset management strategy include establishing an asset importance hierarchy, developing approaches to decision-making, frameworks to establishing condition assessments, level of service and risk assessments, continuous improvement opportunities, creating informed funding allocation reviews, asset renewal management, and high-level communication strategies. From developing a strategy for asset management, staff will be able to continually develop informed master plans and category-specific asset management plans, leading into future long-term financial planning. Following the presentation, staff would be proceeding with establishing a Talk Tofino page to provide transparent communication with the community and gather feedback regarding amending the asset management policy and developing the asset management strategy. So next steps, just hoping to get any feedback from the committee of the whole today. And then we'll be moving to setting up a Talk Tofino page this month and returning to council later this year with a drafted amended policy and a draft asset management strategy. So leave this up here for any questions or comments and considerations.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Mr. Anderson? Oh, Councillor Anderson.
What would the Talk to Tofino page have on it by way of information for the public comment? I think a lot of members of the public that aren't more familiar with what asset management is all about might need something to comment on. So I'm just wondering what will go on that page.
That's through the chair. That's a great question. And we will be focusing on providing the public with more education on what an asset management strategy is and outlining what the framework that feedback that staff are looking to get out of that process. So be very education based approach. Okay, that answers the question.
Right. Thank you. We're gonna go with Councillor Steer, followed by Councillor Sloman.
Yes, thank you. And through the chair, thank you for the report here and looking for feedback. In your report, Simon, on the slideshow, you talked about land being included in that asset management conversation. Would that be, is that now to be the natural asset management, which we've been talking about for a while? Is that inclusive in this, or is this going to, that will be something completely different? I just saw there was one line in there that said land would be included.
Thanks for the question, and through the chair, yes, land is included, but natural capital assets are a separate part, which wouldn't be a part of the strategy. That's a future initiative that's kind of coming out through both the province and slowing down for the municipal world.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Sloman.
Yes, through the chair. My question is how the asset management policy and strategy will work with the tariff task force, and if information like well, that will be available on Talk to Tofino.
Through the chair, good question. It wouldn't directly correlate in the kind of long-term and holistic planning, but in the short term, as we develop asset management plans, they do need to be designed to be flexible to different constraints that come up from time to time. So typically there's not inflation that's included in the long term in these plans, but in the short term for sure would be evaluating part of those little tariffs.
Okay, any more comments or questions? I don't see a motion attached to this, so do you feel like you have sufficient feedback from council?
Through the chair, yes, or to the chair, I should say. Yes.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, on to item 8.4, 2025 quarterly financial report, verbal report for corporate services division. So you.
Afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today we are going to look at quarter 2 of 2025 financial report for District of Tofino. To mention that the information provided is unaudited and subject to change, as well as that all values provided consider information available up to and including June 30th, 2025. The presentation will have two main parts. We will start with the financial officer report. And that will be followed by the capital project progress updates by division. I want to start by mentioning a couple of notes regarding the property taxation. The tax notices were sent mid-May. Taxes were due on July 2nd, 2025. And for this period, we had supplementary adjustments of $1,400 as of June 30th, 2025. A note here, that adjustment is due to a new role being added, which resulted in the 26,000 being moved to the utility class, hence the adjustment. Looking at taxes receivable under property taxation, what we can see on the screen is the values for the last year on top of 810,000, followed by 845, which represents the July 2nd, 2025 of this year. That represents an increase of about 4% from last year. And also we can see that almost a month later, at the end of July this year, that value dropped to 492,000, meaning that more people paid their taxes since July 2nd. Taxes in arrears, which are taxes unpaid from last year. Last year, we've seen a value of 96,000. And same time this year on July 2nd, we can see 125,000. That shows an increase of 30% from last year. That value dropped a bit by the end of July to 112,000. The delinquent taxes, which are taxes unpaid from 2 years ago. The value registered last year on July 2nd was 16,000. For July 2nd this year, we can see a drop of 25% to a value of 12,000. And till the end of July of 2025, there was a very small change of about $300. In terms of tax on property, as of September 9, there are no accounts with delinquent taxes owing. Hence, there will be no tax sale in 2025. We'll go a bit over a few fees and charges that are relevant, and then tell a bit of the story of what happened in the first 6 months of the year. I would start with the bylaw business license revenue. The budget was 350,000, and the actuals as of end of June this year were at 347. And that it's in the same almost due to the dollar to the same value that was collected in 2024, and we're anticipating that it's in line with the budget rate. For also under planning, we have the zoning fees and charges budgeted at 8,000. The actuals were above that value. I can mention here that the 9,000 is 3 times higher than what was collected last June. And we are forecasting to be around 10,000 by the end of this fiscal. For subdivision, budget is 8,000. We do not have any actuals as of now. Last year was just below 3,000. And this is one of those budget lines that is difficult to predict at this point. Developed permits has a value of 15,000 as budget. Around 3,400 have been collected so far by June 30th. Last year was almost triple, was 11,000. The reason for the lower actuals, it's due to tariffs and high building costs being the factors for that. Under the building permits, budget being 100,000, collecting 41,000 so far. Just a bit lower than last year being at 54,000. Same as the previous line, tariffs and high building costs are the factors that are showing the lower actuals. Under community hall revenue, budget being around 35,000. About half of that, 13,000 was collected. Last year was even less than that, was around 6,700. The reason for it being that the kitchen rentals was moved, so that influenced the bookings last year. Looking at the rec programs, smaller values, but something to look at nevertheless. For martial arts, we can see a value that's tripled from last year at 4,200. That is something that depends on contractor availability. The spring and winter camps has a lower value this year than 4,000 less than last year. By now, we are at 1/4 of the budget put forward. And again, depends on contractor availability, and likely we will not reach the budgeted value of 10,000. Both basketball and racket sports are new programs, and they are performing fairly well. And we are waiting to see how the year will progress and have a better idea of how those programs will be developed in the following years. For programs youth, we had a budget of 57,000. Unfortunately, we were unsuccessful with a 50K grant application. Saying that the expenses for this program will be covered by the 2024 deferred grant and donation revenue, so that it's being covered. For seniors, we collected 6,000 more than last year at 34,000, and funded. This is funded mostly from grants. The program that was the most successful this year, and looks like people and kids are really enjoying is the skateboarding one. We put it at $500 as budget, but the program had an immense success, and we managed to reach 11,000 at this point. And it's a new program, and it looks like everybody's enjoying this program. Switching gears and moving to utilities, I would like to bring your attention to the actuals. And what we can see on the screen are the actuals as Q2, which is June 30th, for the last 3 years, top to bottom, and left to right, we can see the water, sewer, and a total of those two. So for water, in 2023, was 451,000. Then in 2024, we had a 5% increase to 473. And then in 2025, as of June 30th, we had 29% increase, bringing us $608,000. For sewer, it's more or less the same trend with 2025 a bit higher. So started at 422K in 2023, increased by 4% to 440 in 2024, and this year in 2025 we collected 885,000. That is literally double the value of last year. The main reason for that are the new rates that were put in place July 1st, 2024. And to be more exact, the variable sewer rate fee was the factor for this increase. Also, some of it relates to the consumption, which I will mention on the next slide. So overall, water and sewer put together 5% increase in 2024 versus 2023, and a 63% increase from last year to Q2 of 2025. Delving a bit deeper in utilities, what we are seeing on the screen is forecast versus actuals as of Q2. And the first line, we can look at how the values were forecasted, what we expected to be collected for the first 6 months of the year, followed by the next line, which are the actuals. Just the increase is it's visible. But going back to my comments on the previous slide on consumption, we were conservative when it comes down to forecasting in terms of consumption. We had a 1% increase forecasted, but the consumption was higher. For residential, we can see a 3% increase, and for commercial, actually the increase is 8% over the forecast. So the two put together, we can have an average of 6% overall increase of utilities forecast versus actuals.
All right, we're just going to take a quick question here from Mayor Watt.
Yeah, just a quick, thank you, Mr. Duke. Andre. Just a quick clarification, the forecast was based on consumption, and then the consumption was higher. Is that what I'm hearing? Or were we projecting a decrease in consumption because of increase in rates, and that didn't happen? I'm just wondering.
Through the chair, it was a combination of the two. And because the rates were changed in July, we had to look back at the new rates and the new habits of people in consumption. So it was basically looking at both of them. But mostly we took in consideration the rates because that's what we had at hand. The consumption was based on what we've seen in the past, in the last, I would say, 3 years. But again, we were conservative. We went with 1% because in a way it's better to kind of receive a bit more than having a budget that we are not achieving. So, but it's a consumption that it's definitely higher than expected. We are monitoring that, and we have the data to find out what's further.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
moving to contingency allocation, we're starting with the general funds. For 2025 fiscal year, we have a 225,000 contingency. As of now, I would say as of June 30th, 2025, we have 4 areas that's contingencies were allocated to. Consulting and legal expenses, 26,000. Second Street office expenses, 10,000. Increases to hydro and fuel, 7,000. And credit card terminals for inflation, 1,300, which brings us to a balance of 180, again, as June 30th this year. When it comes down to water and sewer, for water, we have a contingency as adopted of 56,000. Out of that, as of June 30th, we had legal expenses of 8,800, as well as hydro and fuel increases of 2,800, bringing the balance at $44,000. For sewer, we have a contingency of 75,000. 2 lines for that, legal expenses 15,000, and the hydro and fuel amounts to $1,700 for a balance of 58,000 as of June 30th. In regards to the wastewater treatment plant update, we do have a couple of updates. The construction finished as of August 31st, 2025. Currently, we are working with the province to the final claims. We're in the process of that. And reports on the projects as well as on the financials of the projects will be brought forward to council in October. At this point, I will move to the second part of the presentation, which represents the capital project progress. We'll start with the corporate services. First project is the tsunami siren. This is a project which is in progress. We have a consultant that will inspect the site for environmental reporting requirements. That will be followed by geotechnical engineering, radio analysis. In terms of updates, as I mentioned, project is on the way. No costs incurred yet. And we are awaiting new lease agreements between District of Tofino and the province. Also, I should mention that the budget is 70,000 for this project. The other project under corporate services is the vertical evacuation structure. This project includes the design and construction of the vertical evacuation structure in the Chesterman Beach area. Updates on this project, the project is underway. All site visits from key engineers and environmental consultants have been completed. Budget being 150,000. Spent 55,000 so far, with a remaining balance of just below 95,000. Moving to community services capital projects. We are starting with a community hall renewal. This is a project that is in progress right now. And its intention is to improve access and functionality to community members. Project was started in 2024. Includes FYA reception desk and kitchen upgrades. Updates on the projects. We are at the mechanical design stage right now. And the request for proposal process is in progress. Budget wise, we have 167,000 for this project. The spend is minimal at 4,500 with the remaining balance of $162,000. 4th Street washroom, again, another project that is in progress. This project includes design and construction of the washroom facility east of Wikinini Schoolfield on 4th Street. It's a design phase right now. And another detail would be working with the engineer to find best possible location. Right a way to not situate the washroom storage room for recreation department. The budget is at 400,000. Again, spending it's minimal 1,000 with the remaining balance of almost 399,000. Another project that is in progress at the moment is the multi-use path upgrade. This specific project carries out essential improvements to the multi-use path, coming from the active transportation guidelines, which increase the required path width, and annual condition assessment conducted by the Parks Department. Updates on this project, again, design phase, and requesting right-of-ways on private property, working through those with property owners to move project forward. The budget for this project is 800,000. Spent is 11,000 at this point. I should say as June 30th, 2025, with a remaining balance of just under 799,000. Sport court resurfacing, you might see this already happened, but again, this is as of June 30th, 2025 information. Will be completed by end of September. The budget is 55,000 and relates to resurfacing the village green basketball courts.
Sorry, I'm just going to call a point of privilege for Mayor Law here for a 5-minute recess.
Basketball courts look great.
Yeah. All right, thanks very much, and we're back. Can you please?
So continuing with the capital projects updates for second quarter of 2025. The next one is Campbell Street sidewalk replacement. It's not yet commenced. We do have a bit of a spending, but updates on this project is that it will be deferred to 2026, and there might be some possible scope changes. As of now, the project aims to revitalize the deteriorating sidewalk along the north side of Campbell Street. Has a budget of $327,000. The project that was completed is the Tonquin Stairs and Bridge replacement. We are happy to report that it came under budget. With a budget of 15,000, we spent shy of 10,000, with a remaining value of $5,200. And this project aimed to resolve structural support issues affecting both the stairs and the bridge. Another project that is in progress is the South Tonquin Trail upgrade. This particular project will address the deterioration that the trail is currently experiencing. Updates on this project: the survey was completed, and engineers are working on the design. Budget for this is around $100,000. Spend is minimal at this point, as of June 30th, at $2,000, with the remaining of $98,000 at this point. A project that was complete, though, is the North Cox Bay beach access. This particular one addresses the North Coast Bay trailhead deterioration situated along the beachfront, and it's another good news where it came under budget, cited at $92,000 as budget, spent $58,000 with a remaining of $34,000.
Sorry? I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Andre, tell me how these come under budget and who should we clap?
Thanks, right.
That's fantastic.
Mr. Staley, is there Mr. Stevens projects?
Mr. Staley?
Right.
Okay, well, let it be known. Big clap, big round of applause for Todd. Yeah, come on.
Okay. Are we allowed?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm not the chair.
Oh, no, no. Oh, we are, but staff is not. All right, duly noted. Moving forward with our enthusiasm.
So, following on that note, another maybe round of applause. Another project that was complete was the Tonquin Bridge replacement. This was a big project. Basically was replacement, allowing the district to access the larger equipment to provide needed trail maintenance to the southern side of the Tonquin Trail. As I mentioned, was completed. The budget was $285,000. The spend was $230,000. And the remaining value under was $54,000. We are continuing actually with the good news. Smaller values though, but nevertheless important. As SCBA, which stands for the self-contained breathing apparatus. There is a pack, and the project was replacement of such packs. It's in progress. It's almost done. Such packs needed to be replaced because of their age, and is the primary life safety device for firefighters. Product and invoice was received, and we are at the final adjustments. Budget was $190,000. Spent so far almost all of it, 186, remaining 3,400, which we'll see if there will be any values left. But at this point, it's slightly under. Moving on to the third division, capital projects under infrastructure and public works, project progress update. We're starting with the LED streetlight replacement. This is a project that is in progress. And it includes priority streetlight repairs and replacements in 4 key areas. Updates on this one project is underway. The remainder of it is scheduled for third quarter of 2025, so expected to be done by end of September. Budget 45,000. Value-wise was only 1,800 spent. But again, these are values as of June 30th, 2025. Another project in progress is the Olsen Road storm main. This particular one involves the construction of a storm drain pipe from Pacific Rim Highway to the shoreline on Olsen Road. Updates, again, it's ongoing, likely pushed into 2026. Reason being Ministry of Transportation funding outstanding at this point. No value spent yet, but the budget as of now is at 624,000. Fleet. The additions on the fleet is a project in progress. Again, includes new vehicles required to maintain the existing level of service. Procurement is underway. Again, as of June 30th, there were no values being spent, but the budget for this particular one is at $65,000. In relation to the fleet replacements, there is again a project that is in progress. The project includes a number of asset renewals from the asset management plan, edge-based renewal schedule, and should be completed in 2025 and 2026. Couple of notes here. The multi-hug purchase was complete, and procurement is underway for 3 other units. Budget for this fleet replacements is at 483,000. Spent was almost half of it at 213, with the remaining of 369 for the rest of the replacements. The project that was not yet commenced is the Sharp Creek Dam remediation. This project includes installation of a walkway to the top of the split, structural improvements to the dam for both seismic and condition improvement, and also removal of organic growth. Updates as of now, assessing proposal for this project, and it may commence in quarter 3 of this fiscal. budget for it at $67,500. Another project that is in progress is the closed creek valve chamber replacement. This particular one is in the identifying the water master plan, capital works plan. The project replaces a critical valve chamber and updates on it. Draft design was received. And we do have an invoice received in Q3, but because the reporting is on Q2 as of June 30th, that value is not showing up on the screen. The budget being at $30,000. The Main Street Water Service Replacement Project is another one that is in progress. Such project, again, will replace the water main and service connections along the Main Street corridor. Updates on it, draft design received, same as the previous one, the budget being $103,000. A project that was not yet started is the lift station SCADA upgrades. The sewer lift stations project is to integrate all existing District of Tofino sewer lift stations in the SCADA monitoring system. Updates on its proposal received, but was over budget. So that is something that we are still working on. Budget for this specific project being at $100,000. Another one that did not start yet is the South Force Main design. This one is a combination of 3 existing projects: lift station, upgrades, and twinning of the force main from Malby to Lynn Road. And it intends to address sewer conveyance capacity issues. Updates on this particular project may commence later in 2025, but likely will be pushed to 2026 once sanitary master plan will be finalized. The budget for this project sits at $275,000. That concludes my notes on Q2 of 2025, the financial report. Welcome any questions or comments.
Okay, we'll start off with any questions. If we could see Councillor Steer on screen, if he's still with us. Any questions? Any comments? Other than Mayor Law's extra enthusiastic under budget applause? All right.
Just the
Oh.
the one project that came back didn't proceed because the proposals were over budget. Will that come back to council or get pushed off to the next budget?
Thank you for the question through the chair. I will report to my colleague.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Through the chair, where staff are looking at de-scoping some of the non-essential lift stations from the project. We will achieve budget this year. So specifically, some of the smaller lift stations throughout the Lynn and Chesterman loop. Not to go too far into the weeds, but just to establish controls to TELUS, because you have to put TELUS to each one, and then you'd have to actually upgrade the electronics within those stations because they're quite basic and small. So the amount of cost for that was a lot higher than what was originally anticipated.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? There's no recommendation from this, so thank you very much. We have no unfinished business, so we move on to item 10, question period. Do we have anyone signed up for question period online?
We don't currently have any members of the public in attendance online or so no question.
Thank you very much. Would anyone like to move us into closed? Move from the chair. Okay. I move that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to sections 91 AC FK and 92 B of the community charter to discuss matters relating to personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality, labor relations or other employee relations, law enforcement, if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the conduct of an investigation under or enforcement of enactment, negotiations, and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that in the view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interest of the municipality if they were held in public. The consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the municipality and a provincial government or the federal government or both, or between a provincial government or the federal government or both and a third party. Councillor Thomas, and a comment from CAO.
Apologies, I just wanted this to be on the record. I noticed an error in the recommendation. It refers to section 92, but it should read section 90, subsection 2.
Section 90, subsection 2B.
Yes, we will fix that in the next.
Do I need to read this again?
No, you don't.
Okay. All right. All those in favor? Tom, aye. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, and we'll move into close and take a small minute there. Thank you very much for meeting. I was like 1 hour. I'm sure normally when I say this, I like.
You better say yes.
After all these years, fried chickens, yeah.
Is it supposed to be this?
Well, I was including, she looked over here sometime.
Right.
Maybe you were.
That's your dream.
Yes.
Technically.
Down here?
See you in a few minutes.
I will see you next Tuesday.
Oh, you're not coming to practice? Sounds like a fun one. Thank you.
Yeah.
I wish. I definitely.
Let everyone.
Yeah.